Welcome into the Sports Objective and our NCD1 baseball preview. We continue to travel around the state of North Carolina. It's an extremely cold Friday morning here in the western part of the state, the greater Charlotte area. But we appreciate everyone tuning in whenever and however you're watching or listening, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And remember, the show can always be found pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including but not limited to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and Spotify. It's hard to believe, but we're exactly 4 weeks from opening day and the start of the college baseball season. And with that being the case, I'm very excited right now to be joined by the fourth-year head coach of the Davidson Wildcats, Rucker Taylor. Coach, welcome back.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. As you said, it's definitely a chilly Friday, and hopefully that snow is not here in 4 weeks, and we're having a little bit better weather for baseball. But you're right, man, it's that time of the year, and it's an exciting time of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really looking forward to the start of the season as always. And before we talk about this year's club, since we haven't visited since that 2021 season concluded, 27-24, winning record. But I know you really felt like this program's capable of more. And so just talk about the 2021 season and how things unfolded with the craziness of COVID.
Yeah. I think that the easy answer, I probably, maybe with the exception of Mississippi State, who was standing tall at the end of it. I'm pretty glad that the year's over, just with the amount of COVID stuff and dealing with kind of just nationally, it seems like daily changing requirements around that and some of the travel things we had to do. And I think our first time we got together as a team last year was our first practice, which was almost in October. So I think this year, I think you just, from talking with our guys, from watching this fall, is a drastically different feel to the fall, a different tempo to it. I think some of the sophomores that were freshmen last year, there's just a comfort that they maybe never had on campus last year. So I think it was a really encouraging difference this fall, maybe as opposed to last year. Certainly as we've gotten back in the swing of things this week. Obviously COVID's still an issue nationally and certainly internationally, but I think there's a lot less concern. We feel pretty good about the protocols, the plans in place for it. So yeah, I think last year was, end of the day, the wins and losses were not what we're looking for. I had an alumni make the comment that said, man, 10 years ago, if you said 27-24 was a disappointing season, then yeah, I thought you're crazy. But I think that's a good thing for our program now is, you're not just satisfied with a winning record. You want to do more than that. And I think our team this year certainly feels that way. And doing our exit meetings at the end of the year last year, really to a man for the older guys, there's a lot of disappointment with how the season finished and some things we didn't do that traditionally we've done. So I use it as an encouraging thing in my mind. And we certainly are hoping that we can build and have that mindset of 27-24 is not good enough. And I'm glad our program has that.
Let's dive into this year's roster. You return a couple of tremendous bats. First in Trevor Candelaria. And Trevor hit 11 bombs a season ago, 17 doubles. He also stole 13 bases, and I know he had an excellent fall. One of his teammates was just talking about what a tough out he is.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's as good of a player he is, and he's probably, even a better teammate in person and probably the best teammate that I've had, certainly in my time at Davidson and maybe, since I've been coaching. And he's certainly up there. If he's not the guy, he's certainly in that upper echelon and, well respected by his teammates. And, he had a really good year last year. And he was injured his sophomore year as a guy that came in really highly recruited and probably a guy we got a little bit lucky on in the recruiting process. And he played a lot as a freshman. It was a little bit up and down offensively. And the numbers, there's some power numbers, but way too much swing and miss. And defended at a really high level from day one. Sophomore year just was not healthy at all, and it showed up, on the field. Got some things corrected that summer, and just came back and had an incredible year last year. And really was consistent from day one to day 150 or whatever it was. So I was really pleased with him. But just his leadership this year has been exceptional. Really the whole senior class, I think we're very, very fortunate this year. We'll be announcing captains today, and I think you truly could pick of the 9 seniors, anyone out of that group and say they're going to be a captain this year is voted by their teammates, and it wouldn't surprise me. So I think when you look at a lot of college programs, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, whatever, you generally have some older leadership that takes care of a lot of things for you as a coach when you have productive seasons in the win-loss column and just also enjoyable years. And I think we're very much in that category right now. So, talent-wise, I think we'll certainly have what we need this year. I think if you look at some of the off-the-field things, some of the leadership, the way the older group's going about things, I think that gives you a lot of positive excitement going into the season.
In addition to Trevor, take us around the horn positionally, if you would, and just talk about some of those 9 seniors that you're so proud of, and the leadership that they present. Talk about what they bring to the table. I know you have guys with tremendous power like John Hosmer.
Yeah, it's 9 guys and it's 9 different personalities. We do some, this is probably most do. We do some kind of in the fall questionnaires with our guys and asking questions in individual meetings. And you hear a lot of the same names come up. You hear a lot of different names that comes, hey, this guy really helped me with this, or this guy really took me under his wing this fall as a freshman. So I think there's a lot of different personalities within that group, and they're all kind of leading in their own way, which is the way you want it to be. You mentioned Haas, and he had a great year last year. I think he started games at third base, first base, DH, and there's a real chance he'll do all the and catcher actually. There's a real chance he'll do all those things again this year. Then also possibly second base. So he's a guy that you really can stick anywhere. Big, strong, physical guy, a lot of power, and he really improved. Last year with the consistency offensively. Obviously the versatility defensively gives you a lot of comfort as a coach. You can put him in a lot of different spots, and he truly brings like 4 different gloves to the field each day for practice. And hey, Haas bounce here, bounce here, bounce here, and does it, happily. And great physical shape. Weight room very strong. Takes that side of things very seriously with the nutrition and recovery. So gives you some confidence as a guy that can do a lot of different things. On the pitching side, we had 3 guys that were our weekend stars last year. 2 of the 3 were banged up pretty good by the end of the year. Expectations is all all of those guys will be healthy, and the 2 guys that were hurt and had to miss some time or were really limited with what they can do have looked really good since coming back. So I think that's probably, I think 99 of 100 coaches would tell you that pitching really is the foundation, and I think this is probably the most depth we've ever had going into a year. We've got to have guys stay healthy, obviously, but especially if those 3 seniors that were weekend guys last year, and then 2 guys have a chance to really help out the bullpen. If those guys can be healthy and kind of lead, on the field as well, that's going to put us in a really good spot, we feel like.
You talk about feeling very good, about the depth of the staff, and then the weekend rotation with those veteran arms returning. Elaborate a little bit more about the bullpen, if you would. Who are some of those names that we can expect to see?
Yeah.
Key,
So
key innings
Nolan.
from.
Yeah. So Nolan Devos was a guy last year that had our best numbers and really saved us in a couple ways, and we would use him for 2 or 3 innings out of the pen if needed. And as we got into conference play last year, we actually played 4 games on the weekends. We had 9-inning game Friday, doubleheader with 2 7-inning games on Saturday, and then 1 9-inning game on Sunday. So you got some injuries like we did last year, the second half of the year especially. Playing 5 games a week with limited. Man, that really put some stress on us, and Nolan came in some really big situations, both out, as a closer or really an extended guy, and also as a starter, and pitched really, really well for us. So he had a really good summer this year in the Coastal Plain League. Velo ticked up even more, and he actually had opportunity. I think 3 or 4 teams called him, and hey, said, what would it take for you to sign professionally as a draft eligible sophomore? And he's back for us, which we're really excited about. So pretty good chance he'll end up in a starting role this year. So if he does that, it obviously takes a key cog out of the bullpen. But Jacob Peden was a guy last year that was up and down, probably not in the best shape he needed to be in, but has come back this year and was probably our best guy this fall. I'm just absolutely dominant in 1 to 2 inning stints, and fastball has been up to 95, and it's one of those that has a pretty good carry to it, so he does get a lot of swing and miss off that. And then we had a transfer in from, which is a really rare thing for us to get a junior college transfer. Was a guy that was really high academic out of high school, straight 4.0, and at the junior colleges out in California. His name's Torrin Herrick, and his brother actually pitched at Duke a couple of years ago. But Torrin came in and took a jump velo-wise this fall, and he's a sinker slider guy, and it's a really aggressive. I'm gonna come at you, I'm attack, but he was up to 97 at points this fall, and really the second half of the fall was probably our best guy, whereas Peden was probably our most consistent guy day 1 to day 50. So I think with those two guys, that they're probably best both suited in the bullpen right now. Is kind of what we're viewing them as. But there'd be a lot of confidence, if no one ends up in the starting rotation with those guys coming out of the bullpen. So that'd be Jacob Pede and Torrin Herrick were probably the guys that really popped the most this fall.
In addition to that transfer that you just mentioned, I know you add 10 freshmen into the mix. So talk about those guys and who may be able to contribute early.
Yeah. So it's whereas last year's group of freshmen probably from a lot of things outside their control was a lot of I told a couple of those guys, man, if you could mess up something 10 ways, you found a way to mess up 15 ways. I think this year's freshman group came in very mature, probably a little bit easier college environment to walk into than what this year's sophomores had to last year, a little bit clearer expectations, around COVID and what's going on a day in and day out basis. So this year's freshman group has been really, really impressive from a maturity standpoint, how they've gone about things. They do a lot of extra things on their own. A lot of those guys, do like getting into the weight room, and it matters to them. So I think I think that group's really come in and done a great job of fitting in. And in defense of last year's freshmen, this year's sophomores, they weren't allowed to socialize with anybody other than their roommate for a long time last year, just around COVID stuff. So I think it was a tough situation for everyone. So within those guys, a couple of the freshman position guys, I think, have a chance to find some time. And one guy is probably our fastest guy is Troy Johnson, who's a middle infielder, center fielder from Texas. And got a text from a Texas Rangers scout that was doing a showcase really this time last year. Said, hey man, that kid coming to y'all just ran a 6.29 60 for me, and man, y'all got to figure out a way to get him on the field at some point. So he's a guy that can really, really run. Definitely our best runner. Eli Putnam is a third baseman that we thought had a chance to hit, and maybe he's going to have to work on his defense a little bit. And he showed up here, and he's not Nolan Arenado, but it's been really impressive what he's done defensively, and the bat certainly showed up too. And then also a freshman catcher named Jacob Friend, who can really, really catch and throw out of Virginia. And he's a guy that's, swung and missed a little bit this fall, but did hit a couple of home runs. I think he's a guy that, has got a chance to certainly catch it. I mean, you're one injury away from having to have guys catch a ton. And just with his ability to catch and throw, we were really pleased with that. So those are probably the three guys positionally that jumped out the most. And there's a freshman left-hander named Isaac Fix that probably our best velo from the left side, and had some really good outings in the fall, and then some outings that maybe not as consistent, but I think that the ceiling is really, really high for him. I'm excited about him, whether it's, this year maybe in a shorter reliever role. Maybe we start him some in the middle week, but at some point he's going to be a guy that does really help us a lot.
Before we talk about the schedule you have, I wanted to get your thoughts on this era of college baseball and really college athletics in general in terms of a couple of things. Transfer portal and NIL. We'll start off with the transfer portal. Davidson does not have a graduate program, so unfortunately you're not going to be getting grad transfers. And then also I'm sure that those the one-time transfer rule is a lot of times those guys are going to be transferring maybe later in their career, so that will be kind of hard to, especially with the academics of Davidson, that's hard to benefit from also.
Yeah. It's I think with both those things, the right intentions. I think we'll need to see it play out for another year or two. Heck, man, maybe another 3, 4, 5 years to truly see what the actual impact is. Yeah, I think for Davidson specific, with us not having grad school, I don't think it helps us a whole lot. With guys being able to come in and really with how our admissions timeline works, it is very tough for us to get guys in, for the coming year. Very tough. I think for our guys that are, do have that fifth year, we've had guys go to North Carolina, to Michigan, to Arizona State. Our guys, our senior class this year is, and I've gotten calls anywhere from Alabama to Florida State to Texas to Notre Dame. Some really high profile programs. I think that's a really exciting thing for our guys. I think it's a great thing for them, to be able to go somewhere else once they've used their eligibility here, have us help them go there, and have a great experience getting a graduate degree, and also playing a different area of the country sometimes, different conference, just getting to do some different things within the game of baseball. They're forming new relationships, and I think that's just a wonderful thing for those guys. With name, image, likeness, as you are discussing before we hopped on here, man, some of the stuff you're seeing in college football right now is eye opening, and I'm not smart enough to know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just know it's different. There has been some rumblings that maybe the NCAA is going to try to police some of those things, and man, you just talk to college football coaches in general, and I think there's some concern there that maybe the genie's already out of the bottle, and how are we going to go back and get this where we want it. So I think end of the day, the transfer portal is, I don't think it's a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. I think that if schools do it the right way, if you're not encouraging a kid to leave another program, I think if it's the best thing for the individual athlete, there's certainly situations where they need to be able to go and get to a better situation. Absolutely. I hope as coaches, and this is starting to happen already, that we're not taking advantage of it. We're running guys off. We're breaking promises that were made, and that's the thing that gets me a little bit hesitant. Is I think we maybe have allowed that door to creak open a little bit further, where maybe the athlete's not getting what they were promised. I think that's where we've got to look at ourselves as coaches, and really just the whole issue of what is best for everyone, not just what best for my program the next month. So I think a lot of meat left on that bone, as they say.
You talk about those guys leaving due to not having a grad program for some of the premier programs around the country. Kind of turning that situation into a positive. How may or may not, have you used that at all when you're recruiting? And obviously, these young men and the people directing them are smart, so they can see, hey, Davidson's had these players that have left to go here, and it speaks to the high level that you're recruiting, and then the development once they get to campus.
Yeah, it is, and this is probably the first year it really popped up a little bit. And there's a NCAA's kicking around a possibility that the American Baseball Coaches Association. We had some things come out about that. It's really the last couple months. Would you be in favor of, similar to college football? Would you be in favor of a redshirt rule for baseball? What would that look like? So I do think that is something that has the possibility of continuing to be an avenue for schools like us and Wofford College that don't have grad school. We have mentioned it to guys. We certainly have, and even after the first year, we told at that time our sophomores, "Hey guys, long ways away, but you're now going to have an extra year of eligibility. You know, Probably certainly this summertime, start thinking about what do grad school options look like for you. What interests you. A lot of those guys are not to that point yet. A lot of our juniors is when we really encourage them. Hey, let's start making phone calls. Let's start thinking about what makes sense from you from the academic side, what makes sense from the baseball side, the financial side. Let's start digging into this a little bit right now. And heck, we had middle of the year last year, we had a couple guys that got offers from schools that we'd already played against, and I really appreciate the schools asking me first, "Hey, you okay with this?" And man, for me, absolutely, I'd rather that guy know where he's going in March than be worried about at the end of the year because graduation's coming up and he's got application deadlines for grad school. So it's definitely something we've talked about with our current guys, and really this summer for the first time we're talking with recruits of, hey, if this fifth year does get passed, if you have an extra year of eligibility, here's where some of our guys have gone in the past. This is what they've done there. We've got no issue trying to help you get there at that time. And I think for our class last year, we had a pitcher that ended up at Arizona State, an outfielder, Ruben Fontes, at Northwestern, and then a shortstop from last year, Alex Veggie Johnson, ended up at Michigan, where he's actually be reunited with Matt Fry, who was our second baseman the year before that. Matt was Michigan coaches were incredibly excited to have him. And he had a knee injury and had to miss the whole year, but he's back, and those guys are getting to be roommates again. And it's been kind of a cool thing to see that. And that same year's Matt, Brett Centracchio ended up at UNC Chapel Hill, and was an everyday player for them other than a short period he had an injury. And I think he had a great experience there, and is finishing up grad school this year, and has a job offer, and is really excited about it. So it's a good feeling when those guys have those opportunities. It does sting because I wish we had grad school, because I'd love to bring in some of those same guys that want a great education on the graduate level, but it's something we don't have, and I'm just part of the system. But for our guys individually, I think it's a great thing, and I would certainly love to take advantage of it, but just not an option for us right now.
Finally, Coach, listen and take a look at the schedule. Three things really jumped out at me when I was looking at the notes regarding your schedule. You first have the luxury of playing maybe 25 of your first 30 games at home, so you're not on the road much early, and then you have the Davidson connection there, playing games against Columbia and then also Duke. Both of those programs coached by Davidson alums, and then also your guys will have the opportunity to play at a few different minor league ballparks throughout the region.
Yeah, you're right, man. The Davidson connection is great. We've typically played Duke home and home every year. This year they had wanted us to come over there twice. We're going to do one in the minor league park and one on their campus. Coach Pollard, he actually coached Ryan Munger, who's our recruiting coordinator, one of our assistant coaches here. I played summer ball for Josh Jordan, who's their recruiting coordinator. So a lot of connections there. Brett Baretti is also a Davidson guy, and great friends with their staff. And being an Ivy League school, we certainly really with Columbia and Duke, we do cross paths those guys on the recruiting trail. And if a guy tells us, "Hey, coach, I'm going to Duke," or "I'm going to Columbia," or that's something that we certainly can support. We obviously wish we'd had them most of the time, but it's hard to say anything bad about both of those programs and certainly both of those coaches. So that would be obviously competitive. It would certainly be fun to have those guys down. And you're right, the home loaded front end is really kind of a byproduct of our school's missed class policy, and we do everything we can to not miss the until we get into conference play, because we get our allotment at that time. So we do everything we can to get them here. Typically, knock on wood, we get good enough weather to make it work without too much angst. And having turf now is greatly helps that process and relieves a little bit of the worry about some midnight tarp pools when it's 34 degrees and raining. And certainly makes life a lot easier on us as coaches and certainly our players. And in the minor league thing, we kind of saw that last year with some of the scheduling, just chaos that even was going on. The league weeding into our first game. We had multiple games that got moved around that first week even, and played a team at home on Saturday and went to NC State on Sunday, and just a kind of a precursor to a really strange year. But I think our guys like playing some of those places. We actually had a fall game against Duke in Kannapolis this year at the Cannonballers. So we played Wofford last year. Last spring, we were the second game ever there. We'll be back there again this spring. That game has not been announced which one yet, but we've got an in-state opponent that I think will excite people locally that will be playing at Kannapolis, and then we'll be the visiting team against UNC Charlotte at the Knights Ballpark downtown Charlotte again, and be our first time as the visitors there since like 2015. We played the Knights in an exhibition game down there in the spring. We've typically been the home team. We've been down there, but excited to go down there and play UNC Charlotte, who we've played for the first time in a while. So, those ballparks are great. Kannapolis, the Knights, very fortunate to have those opportunities. And it's just a great experience for our guys. And you top that off with how each organization treats you. I mean, it's first class, over the top with customer service. And we've been really, really pleased with our experiences in both parks.
And tell us about the Atlantic 10. I know the A10 last year, VCU was the standard, if I'm not mistaken. So just talk about A10 play.
Yeah, we had a weird year last year where we kind of did things geographically, and we only played a handful of teams as a shorter conference series. They put 4 games in a tight window, and I think of the all the coaches in the league, we'd probably agree that 4 games, that tight window, especially some of the travel issues that could occasionally pop up, was not something we would want to do again. So I think we're excited to get back to a little bit more of a traditional 8 weekend schedule, 3 games on the weekend, get to play a few more people. But I thought VCU, as you said, was definitely the best team last year. We certainly came away from our weekend them very impressed, and they've done a great job. Sean's been there for a while, and I think he does as good of a job of anybody as getting his teams ready to play. And I think they're recruiting at a really nice level now too. And they had 2 of their weekend arms were drafted and as juniors, and both have signed, I believe, and they've got a third baseman who was projected anywhere from late first round to early second round, and hit a bazillion home runs last year. And I think they were a 3 seed in that Starkville regional. And man, they were 2 seed actually. Excuse me, they were the 2 seed down there, which is an Atlantic 10 team to get a 2 seed is a pretty impressive accomplishment. And I thought they've had a couple of years in years past where they were probably deserving of an at-large and didn't get it, which was obviously disappointing for them. But I think they have, in the last 4 or 5 years, have put themselves in a really good position. And we've had some years we've had some pretty good battles with them, and the kind of the winner of our series has maybe ended up being the team that's won the league. So we like to don't like playing those guys, if that makes sense, but like competing against them because we know they're going to go about things the right way. And their kids play hard, they're not mouthy, and again, it's a tough opponent, but certainly an opponent that is going to play the game the right way, and we got a lot of respect for those guys and how they do things.
Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate your time this morning. We really enjoyed the visit, and I look forward to having you back on down the road. Best of luck, excuse me, to the Wildcats in 2022.
Absolutely, and come see us. I know we've had some conversations in the past, but come see us, whether it's on campus from those minor league parks, and hope to see you in person. Appreciate this opportunity, and as I told you before, I think it's cool you're doing this. There's about 1,800 college coaches in North Carolina, so I know you're staying busy with this, but I think it's an awesome concept, and appreciate the opportunity.
No doubt about it, and appreciate you. If you're tuned in right now, if you've missed any of our D1 baseball previews, like Coach just referenced, and we're trying to catch up with every head coach around the state of North Carolina in the D1 ranks, and there are 17 of those. And so far, we're about halfway through. So go to our YouTube channel, subscribe on YouTube, and check each and every one of those out. They range from 15 to 30 minutes in length. An excellent listen during your commute or during lunchtime. But for Davidson head coach Rucker Taylor, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been listening and watching The Sports Objective. And we appreciate everyone tuning in. Take care.